Is there a definitive order to the band stories in Bang Dream Girls Band Party? This was the question I set out to answer, but the deeper I got, the more inconsistencies and contradictions I found, and these needed an explanation. So today I can present to you the definitive Bang Dream timeline, one that Bushiroad has tried to hide from you. So we've got a lot to get through. We're going to begin up here and work our way down there. So we have our pre-timeline here. We have Lolly backstory stuff. There's loads of those events in here. And we have Afterglow beginning. Now this is the Evening Clears event, and it's going to be very, very important. We're coming back to that one later. On to the main story now, and we have our first major event, Poppypa Zero. Now, Poppypa Zero takes place in the first year, Year 1, and it starts in April with Kasumi starting school, and by the time space closes at the end, they say it's been about 3 months. So we've got April, May, June covered in this. But Poppypa Zero is quite a big event, taking place over many months, so really we should be splitting this up. So we're going to split it into 5 major events. The start of term, the Culture Festival, Roselia and Glitter Green's joint live, Poppypa pass their audition for Space, and Space closes. As you can see, it goes from April down to July here. I've taken off May and June because we don't yet know where they fall, but there's space for them. Before we go further, there's a couple of rules we need to set out here to make sure we're being consistent. Firstly, we can assume that characters can generally only be doing one major story at a time. For example, Poppypa can't be helping the Culture Festival while also writing a song for Rimi's sister. Rule number 2, changing into summer uniforms happens in July every year. And rule 2b, for Haneoka, the colour of the tie and skirt indicates what year the girl is in. So we have green for the first years, we have this sort of blue for the second years, and browny grey for the third years. This rule's going to be really important later to help us check our findings. Using rule 2, we can see that when space closes, the girls are still in their winter uniforms, so this must take place sometime before July. Now I know in the anime they're in their summer uniforms, but I don't want to even acknowledge that that exists here. Now that the stage is set, we can consider the 5 initial band stories. Now Pastel Palette's band story has to come first, as by the time of Roselia's band story, they've already made their debut, but they seem to be fairly new, likely some overlap. Roselia and Afterglow's band stories happen at the same time, as there's that crossover conversation between Mocha and Lisa. This gives us a clue to link this with this, as Roselia are already a fully formed band by their joint live with Glitter Green. Initially I thought that Poppypa 1 had to come after Poppypa 0, because 1 comes after 0, there wasn't really much space in 1 for it to take place. But the girls are still wearing their winter uniforms, which doesn't leave much room after this, especially since the 3 months between this mentioned earlier would place the space closing right at the end of June, leaving not much space for Poppypa 1 to take place. As such, the only place this would fit in would be between Poppypa passing their audition for Space and Space closing. Lastly, we have Hello Happy World 1. This one is actually probably the hardest to place. There's not really many links to the other stories in it, but I found it. So in Poppypa 1 here, Michelle is seen working in the shopping district. Now, during Hello Happy, the rights to Michelle are bought by the Suits. So this must come. This must come around like here. Yeah, this matches up, right? You know, the summer uniforms, they haven't changed into them yet. This definitely could take place here. But there's one problem. See, when Misaki gets her job, she is warned about the summer, as if summer is not the current season and a future season. But at the start of her story, when she's talking about Kokoro, she talks about her as though they've known each other for some time. Not been friends, but known each other. So, we can't be in April, and we're not really going to be here either, because it's not summer. So this really has to take place in May. But what about Poppypa 1? Michelle is there in the shopping district. So, this can't happen, it can't exist. Try to rip with the sellotape. So we're going to have to split it into 2 halves. We have first half, which takes place in May, probably around the time of the Culture Festival, I'd imagine. Then we have the second half. Now, this has to take place before space closes, after Poppy for 1. And in fact, let's tidy this up a little bit. Let's move this over to here, where we think it roughly will be. But we're not done yet. We still have the main story to contend with. The main story is actually the biggest continuity error we've got here. Now, you'd think all the bands have formed by this point, right? So, put it at the end. Maybe up here if, you know. But, there's a problem with this. In the opening, we see the girls still in their winter uniforms, meaning this must take place before July. We also know that it takes place after Roselia and Glitter Green's concert. So we've got it around here now. To get a better time placement, we have some interaction between the characters. In Chapter 1, we have Saya introducing Kasumi to Tomare. But, in Poppy Per 1, Kasumi already knows Tomare. So, this must take place before Poppy Per 1, right? We're very close to nailing this down. However, by Chapter 3, Hello Happy World have already fully formed, they play concerts together, the dynamic is settled there. Yeah, so that would place it after Poppy Per 1, which it can't be. Now, you know what's coming here. So, we have the main story up to Chapter 2, between Roselia and Glitter Green's live, and Poppy Per passing their audition for space. It could potentially be after this audition for space, we're not too sure on this. And we have the main story second half, from Chapter 3 onwards, down here, after Hello Happy's second half, but before space closing. From here on out, we switch to regular events. These are much easier, as generally they take place in chronological order. The first one will go over here. We're going to go on to a new column. Given that the girls all seem to know each other in this event, it seems very likely that this comes after the main story. Now, we have something else to discuss with this. This event, the Sakura is blossoming. In Japan, Sakura blooms anywhere between January and May, usually depending on where this is. We need to find out where they live. Thankfully, the clues for where they live are all in one specific event. The Persona 5 crossover, Go Phantom Fever of Twilight. It's probably going to be like somewhere around here, I guess. Now, in this event, we have confirmation that Bandori and Persona 5 take place in the same universe. Firstly, we have Mocha mentioning that the Phantom Thieves are operating online, going to the fan site, and Himari's backing her up here, showing that it's not just Mocha making up some BS about a game she's played. Further still, during the event, we see cameos from the Velvet Room, and even Philemon in his butterfly form. As well as in area conversations and card conversations, there's references to LeBlanc, Chihaya the Fortune Teller, the Gamer Kid from the mall. There's a lot of concrete links here. Now, LeBlanc is the most important one of these. In Tsugumi's event card, her and Mocha go to try and find LeBlanc, or a cafe named after a famous author. This cafe, by the way, serves curry and coffee, which is very Persona 5. They can't find the cafe, but they do find a batting cage, the hot springs, all of the areas around Yongan-Jaya in Persona 5. This means that Bandori must be located at least close to where Persona 5 takes place. Persona 5 takes place in Tokyo. They are within a train ride of Tokyo that they can do in an afternoon after school. Okay, so since I recorded this, I've rewatched Season 2 of the anime. I know the anime is technically in a slightly different continuity, but Tai and Leia perform outside of Otsuka Station, which is in Tokyo, and it would have been a much quicker way to place them in Tokyo. Now, in Tokyo, the Sakura blossoms in April. It can't be here. It has to be a new year. So we have year 2, April. Now, I know you're saying this. Sam, how can this be the second year? They clearly state they're still in their first year. Well, we'll get to that. I promise you, we'll get there. The rest of these events continue naturally. I'm not going to go through all of these events, but I'll just go through a few ones which you have the dates said. We have Wish Upon a Tanzak, which takes place during the Festival of Tanataba in July. Always Halloween for Kokoro, October 31st. Happy Poppin' Xmas in December. New Year's Omakuji Madness, taking place in January year 3. We're going to use actual years later on, so we're keeping with the calendar year. Hectic Happy Valentine's, February. Kaoru's Fleeting White Day musical, White Day, March. We jump down to the bottom here for Memories of Christmas in December. This is our second Christmas event. This one gets back over here. It's getting quite full now, but we're going to move over to this column here for Year 4. We're all here, New Year's party. And I think you get the idea. We're going to keep going down here. Backstage Pass 2. This is in April. The characters, this is the first event where they move up a school year. So, progression of time is consistent. They age forwards, not backwards. And since Japan is a whole year ahead of us in the game, I think it's safe to assume their Christmas and New Year's events would make Year 5. This timeline is getting there. We're pretty close. We just got a little bit more left to do. We want to start filling in this timeline now. We've got all these years, but we don't know what year. We have all the clues we need once more from Go Phantom Thieves of Twilight. Because you see, the Phantom Thieves are still active during this event, as shown by the fan site, meaning it must take place around the same time as Persona 5. However, Persona 5 doesn't have a year. It's just listed as 20XX. The calendar matches up to several actual real-world years, and we can get there because Persona 5 is in the same continuity as Persona 4, which does have a year. In fact, Persona 4 takes place in 2011. Persona 5 could be 2016, 2044, 2076. However, it makes reference to Rise still being an idol. She was a party member from Persona 4. Realistically, looking at her there, she looks in her about early 20s. And so, the year here, 2016. Let's fix up the timeline. Now, I know what you're going to say. Clearly, this can't take place over this many years. It's just a game. Bushiro didn't plan for this. Maybe the events take place during the same time. Well, I'm going to give you some cold, hard evidence that you can't deny for this. Okay, firstly, in Happy Poppin' Xmas, we have Afterglow mentioning they want to do a Christmas show next year. What were the Christmas cards released next year? Afterglow in Christmas costumes. Okay, I see I've still got to do a lot to convince you. But we're just getting started. We have the biggest elephant in the room, the school years, and we're going to answer this right now. Okay, so my hypothesis that I will present to you here is that the girls have repeated their years many times, and that explains this. For me, the single biggest event that leads to this conclusion is the Cursed Well event. This is probably the most important event in the whole of this. Second most important, actually. Now, this event takes place just after they've changed into their summer uniforms. However, there's a flashback. This flashback is Hina meeting Kaoru for the first time. They don't know each other. They say, oh, we're going to be in class next year. The game says a few months ago. Quite vague, if I do say so. But they're wearing summer uniforms, so this has to be the previous year. Thing is, the colours of their ties, that's still their second year uniforms, before and after the flashback. So, yeah, clearly they have been in second year at least twice now. This is pretty big evidence that at least the 2015 and 2016 year, they repeat. This only explains the repeating the year between 2015 and 2016. We still got to explain how they repeated the year from 2014 to 2015. But I've got you covered on that too. Right, okay. We're going all the way back to this beginning bit. Remember I said when Afterglow began that was the most important event, or something along those lines, I can't remember what I said. The event that this flashback takes place is after the Sakura Blossoming Party, during the first year of events. In this event, they say, I'm going to quote directly on this, Himari, Afterglow is 3 years old now. Ran, 3 years, huh? Then Mocha, we started the band in our second year of middle school. Now, I really checked this out to make sure. Japanese middle school 100% is 3 years. They were second year middle school 3 years ago, yet the game is trying to tell us they are first year high school. See what I mean? Now this takes place in 2015, so they've repeated their 2014 year. Now yes, this doesn't tell us about every character, but since we see characters with their cohort, we can assume that when one character repeats, the other characters repeat as they're wearing the same uniforms in the same class as them. This 3 years ago lets us put a timestamp on when Afterglow began, 2012, a year after Persona 4, which can finally rejoin the timeline. So this here is clear, undeniable evidence that they have repeated the year not once, but twice, probably 3 times even. We're not done yet. We know the characters' ages, we know when they were born, we know the minimum of how old they must be. They may have repeated years earlier, but we don't know that. We're going to assume they haven't. We can fill out their birthdays all the way back here. So we have it now. All 25 Bandori's birthdays, all over here. In current Japan servers, the year is 2018 in Universe, making their ages between 18 and 21 roughly. If you want to get even more specific, currently the year in our world is 2020, so add 2 more years to that. Unfortunately, I can't do the same for the members of RAS, as they've only just started being added to the game in Japan, so there's not really much of a way I can fudge these numbers. Wait, give me 5 minutes and a printer and I'll be back. I'm going to have to become my own worst enemy here and use the anime as evidence. You see, Season 1 of the anime takes place in 2014. Season 2 of the anime is explicitly stated to be a year later, meaning that's in 2015. But the anime is in a separate but parallel timeline to the games. So this whole thing here, Season 1, right? But not. Season 1's like off to one side. Then we move on to Season 2. Season 2 takes place a year later, so 2015 over here. Now, in Season 2, Masking and Leia are second year high schoolers. Chutu's a first year high schooler, but she's a year younger, and Pario's a year younger than that. Now, using this, we can then work backwards to get their birthdays, which is what I'm cutting out now. So, Masking is the oldest, from May 12th, 98. Leia in 1999. Next up we have Locke, July 17th, 99. Chutu, December 7th, 2000. And last but not least, Pario. But we're still not done yet. So, we've got Persona 4 over here. Persona 4's in the timeline, so too's Persona 2. We've got Persona 2 Eternal Punishment here, which then links into alternative timelines to get to the rest of the Megami Tensei franchise. And we know alternative timelines are part of the Bandori multiverse. We already have the anime and the game, 2 separate timelines. Who's to say there aren't more? Now, Megami Tensei 3, featuring Dante from the Devil May Cry series. I know this is a stretch, but think back to the Afterglow Halloween event, the 6th Afterglow. Ghosts appear in it, there's the playing of the music instrument when no one's there, the door opening at the end, the voice talking to them. This was really out of place in a cutesy slice of life game, with just ghosts appearing and never being explained. I think we've just explained it. Persona 2, not even having to jump to alternate timelines here. There are ghosts and demons interacting with the real world there. Not only have we explained the Bandori timeline, we've also explained one of the biggest mysteries in the game. And this is the complete Bandori timeline that Bushiro didn't want you to know about. Thank you for watching till the end. If you've been here for the past few weeks, then it might be a little different from what you're used to, but don't worry, the next SMT history video is almost done and it should be out next week. If you're new here, then feel free to give those videos a watch. I'll have a playlist linked up here, and if you want something more like this, though not as good to be honest, down here's a video about which Link is the goodest boy. As always, stay safe, have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you again soon.